Chapter 10, Light in the Cave. GT A82.3-52-7204-0.6. Eldon, being so impressed and moved in a way he never had before by being reunited with Salena, knew in his mind that these events were not due to random chance. He was assimilating the evidence that the source of life was not only a creator, an all-powerful supreme being, but that this one had a purpose to bringing order and harmony. Eldon believed this creator was active in the universe, in worlds, in civilizations, and even in the lives of individuals to accomplish his purpose or grand design. This realization was not shared by the majority of intelligent life forms in this galaxy as far as Eldon knew. The Sing Swords were like a tiny school of phosphor fish shining their little lights in a vast dark sea. The task of bringing light to all life was too daunting to even comprehend or think much about, and yet they knew their work was by design and was for the benefit of all intelligent life. That being the case, they forged ahead, becoming more solidified in the knowledge that the Creator was using them and considered each one important to him. Eldon saw the need to chronicle his life, at least some of his outstanding experiences, as he is doing now. In doing this, he uses simple terms for the most part because he wants it to be read by many different life forms. Also, he feels very humble, like a child, in view of evidence of the source and his grand purpose. The more he sees in traveling the galaxy, the more he feels like a child with so much to learn. Therefore, plain, simple terms seems more appropriate, since the words in languages he knows could never fully describe the things he has seen anyway. Eldon's writings will at least in part be added to the Sing Sword Chronicles. The Sing Swords, and really all seekers of the source, are always on the alert for a specific revelation from the Creator, revealing or explaining himself in some way. It could be a sign or a vision, a voice or a written word, but it has to be authentic, provable, and of course supranatural. It stands to reason for most IBs or intelligent beings that the Creator would have a name, since all IBs and even animals have names. Of course, the name would have to be unique, unlike any other terrestrial finite being. In Eldon's mother tongue, some call the Creator Ayah, or the Ayah, but there has never been any agreement or consensus on the name. Of the hundreds of titles, the most used is Creator. Every Sing Sword considers this search for the Creator the highest priority in life and the reason why we are here. All records indicate that the seekers of the Source have found this endeavor to be a one-sided search. They have been searching the Creator, but he has not sought for any of them or made direct communication with anyone. Only some ancient legends mention something called divine intervention, and there have been a few rare claims of a message from the Creator, but these have not had any tangible proof. And yet the conviction, expectation, or faith, if you will, of the seekers continues to grow, pushing them on ahead. A major impetus for their growth is the mounting body of evidence of the Creator and his purpose for an orderly universe. Something is always learned, discovered, or revealed in each Sing Sword mission that shows there is a grand scheme or design at work. All that is involved in this can never be understood fully by a mere person or IB, but we can begin to see a pattern or design as we put each piece of the mosaic together. Then someday, if we can look at the mosaic from a distance, we can see a picture or a better idea of the whole. Eldon's next mission, which is the first for Salena and the first one for them as a team, proved to be one of important discoveries for both of them. They were sent to Ofar Holokwi. Known only to the inhabitants of it by this name, they were the last of their kind. In fact, their existence was unknown except to the SS Dome and the agents assigned to it, Eldon, Salena, and 3 others. This place was not a planet, but a bloom ball, a type of flowering plant. It was found in a pot in the window of the 86th floor residence of Al-Namat Sheik. Mr. Sheik lived on the planet Metrozoid 4 in the globular star cluster Quindium. This planet was half the size of Earth, but holding about 3 times the population. The entire surface of Metrozoid was covered in structures made by the swarming 26 billion ibis who inhabit it. So the SS agents were sent to a tiny world within a world. Where did the intelligent creatures on Ophar Holoqui come from? How did they get in Mr. Sheik's window? How could Eldon and Salena help them? The answers to the first 2 questions were told to the agents before they arrived. This is the story told to them of the origin of the ibis on the Bloom Ball. In the distant past, before this planet was called Metrozoid, it was a beautiful place with colorful trees and plants of all types. Many fields of bloom ball plants could be found there. Then the Lilistan arrived in several large transport ships. They were running from the Aerozoids, a race of exploiters that wanted to enslave them. The Lilistan, being totally non-violent, did not have weapons to defend themselves. On the planet, they found only plant life. The place looked like a nice place to rest. But they could not let their guard down because they knew the Aerozoids would be there soon. A decision had to be made on one of 3 choices. 1, they could leave and continue running. This was eliminated without delay. 2, they could stand their ground and fight. This one was against their beliefs and their nature. 3, they could somehow hide themselves. Immediately they set to work on that one. Talking to the Aerozoids and suing for peace had already been tried without any success. After a few days, the Lilistan were ready to try using their molecular scanners to trans-scan a reduced replica into something. This process was still experimental, but had some success in tests. A volunteer was trans-scanned by a beam into one of the bloom balls. It was successful because they received radio transmissions from him. He was able to tell them about where he was and that it could apparently support life. The bloom ball plants were chosen because there were many of them, they were sturdy, readily available, and other reasons. The Aerozoids could now be seen by long-range scans. They would be there in less than 2 hours. So all of the Lilistan were trans-scanned or beamed into the bloom balls before their enemies descended upon them. When they arrived, they just found a few of the Lilistan ships in orbit, a few on the surface, but no Lilistan. Their plan worked by concealing themselves in the plants, except that about 1/3 of their number did not survive the trans-scan beam process. The rest were scattered over several bloom ball fields inside their new homes. The Lilistan soon learned that when they were on the surface of the bloom balls, it created an energy field surrounding it. Also, another effect they had suspected proved true. They were in a different dimension of time. From their observations, time had speeded up for them by a factor of 10. So if 60 minutes pass in their new world, only 6 minutes will have passed on the planet. With only 20 to 50 of them on each bloom ball, their life was drastically changed. Communications were possible for a while. They estimated 3 months, with others on other bloom ball worlds with their small radios. Life became very primitive, but they were still alive as a people. Eventually the Aerozoids came and took over the planet. The surface was gradually encrusted in their artificial structures and known as Metrozoid. The only remaining spot where the bloom balls were growing was on an island park in the area where Al-Namat Sheik lived. Mr. Sheik, being the owner of the island park, approved a building project for the island. His wife, Amarenda, was not happy with his decision. She believed it should be preserved. The project went forward, destroying one of the last natural wildlife havens on the planet. As the land was being cleared, a carol bird plucked a bloom ball in desperation and took flight across the canal. Amarenda Sheik was watching it with a tear in her eye. As it flew overhead, it released the bloom ball and it fell into Amarenda's hair. She took it with great care and planted it in the pot in her window. It was special to her. No one could imagine how special it really was, for it contained the last surviving members of the Lilistan people. Ofar Holokwi was unlike any world that Eldon had ever seen. Through the power of the SCF of the SS Dome, he and Salena were sent there in the right size and in the dimension needed. They each were smaller than 1/10 of a millimeter in the Metrozoid scale. They knew they were on a bloomball plant, though it did resemble a planet. Cold and dark, full of jagged peaks and deep ravines, it appeared inhospitable. The sky was a grayish glow with no definite light source. This desolate condition was much worse than they expected. After a few hours of their time surveying the surface, no Lilistan were seen. Eldon and Salena were aware that another team of agents from the Dome was sent to Metrozoid at the same time. Both teams were on the same mission. That team was to spend no more than 1 week in Metrozoid time. That meant that the team on Ofar Holokwi would be there as long as 10 weeks. Eldon and Salena found temporary shelter in the caves there. Some plant life, or what looked like plants, was still growing. This served as some sustenance. However, their physical needs were minimal because the SEF from the Dome energized them. The normal desires of a heterosexual couple living together were suppressed for them because of their SS mission. This was really to their advantage. Any needs or anxieties associated with life outside the Dome would not distract them now. This in no way made SS agents like automatons. It aided them to focus on their mission. Eldon and Salena had a partnership that was a true friendship. They valued their companionship immensely. This helped them to work together well. The second day period on this bloomball world was no different than the first. On the third day, however, they heard hissing and what sounded like distant screams. The fourth day they saw the first evidence of life. It was a large bug with wings that flew away when it sensed them. Finally, on the seventh day, they came upon what looked like a biped body jumping, or could it be flying? When they got to the spot, then they saw a horror they wished they had never seen. That body was not jumping or flying, it was thrown. It lay on top of a pile of other bodies, gray and losing form as the sky. They had found a large pit where the Lilistan had put their dead. An entrance to a cave was nearby. They entered it. Slowly they walked downward into the darkness. A small lamp they had provided the only light now. Then a faint glow could be seen. It got brighter as they walked farther into the cave. "I'm glad we finally found them," Eldon said, somewhat relieved. Salena looked at him and said, "They all must have took refuge inside." Soon they entered a large cavern with glowing light emanating from the walls. All along the walls, from the floor to ceiling, were various sized openings. A buzzing sound started up and kept growing into a cascade of noise. Then bugs started buzzing around menacingly, with bodies as large as the visitors' heads. Eldon and Salena started to run out of the cave chamber, away from the attacking bugs. Eldon shouted out, "We are here to help the Lilistan!" All they could do was run and find shelter in another cave. Within an hour, they were back at the entrance of the bug cave, discussing what to do about the bugs. From behind them came the sound of clicking and scratching. The visitors hid behind a rock. Then over a rise came a very large bug with a little person on its back. It appeared to be a biped dwarf. This was the first Lilistan they had seen. The bug took the dwarf down into the cave. Salena and Eldon followed as quietly as they could. The bug went into a side passage they had not noticed the first time. Then it passed through some kind of translucent membrane into a small chamber. There was a faint glow coming from the chamber. Eldon called out to announce themselves, but no response. He reached through the membrane with little or no resistance. Then he stuck his head through it and said hello. Eldon heard the patter of small feet running, saw a very small dwarf enter the chamber, heard its high-pitched scream, and then blacked out. He woke up on the floor with Salena calling his name. Eldon had been hit with a gummy ball, a toy of a dwarf child. The pieces of it rolled off of Eldon, then came back together as if pulled by invisible threads to form one ball again. The ball then immediately shot back into the chamber where it came from. Then they heard the tiny voice on the other side saying, "Hello, hello," repeating what Eldon said. Then other voices could be heard. "That is what you get for sticking your head in someone's door," Salena said, helping Eldon up. "That must have been a frightened child," Eldon said, holding his head. Suddenly they were grabbed by long, thin vines or tentacles. They were sticky and wrapped around each of them in just a few seconds. They were yanked into the first chamber and then into a slightly larger one. The long tentacles came from a large bug in the center of the room. It held fast Eldon and Salena, each wrapped in a tentacle, being dangled above the floor. As they were being waved around the room and turned in every direction, the Lillistan started to come in. They were smaller than the visitors and looked in wonder and amazement at them. Then the dwarf child bounced in, unable to contain his excitement. He kept saying the word hello and ran from his parent dwarf. He jumped on the back of the big bug in the center of the room. He pointed at the visitors and did flips in his glee. The parent dwarf was able to restrain him with some kind of rope. Eldon tried to speak with them while being waved around by the bug. "We have come to help the Lillistan. Can we speak to your leader?" The oldest Lillistan there, Fregban, recognized the ancient language of his people. He said, You're speak old din old tongue. You're you ancestors. You're din our ancestora din come back din yer." That was a transliteration of his question, which was asking if they were their ancestors that had returned. Eldon spoke to them in the last known language of the Lillistan. It evidently had changed over the many generations. Their appearance was something unexpected to the visitors as well. They were small, like dwarfs now. Fregban commanded the bug to put them down. The Lillistan were not afraid now as they began to gather around the visitors. They inspected them up and down with their large eyes, while various involuntary smiles dawned their crooked little mouths. "Can you take us to your leader now?" Eldon urged again. From somewhere, more little people came in and began to fill the room. They now lifted up the visitors and carried them over their heads from room to room. Finally, they reached the large cavern that Eldon and Salena first found. They set them down on some kind of pillows. The swarm of little people now receded slowly toward the edges of the large chamber. The Lillistan elders now entered and took their little seats before the visitors. Fregban was one of them. The crowd now calmed down and the chatter faded out. After a few seconds of silent stares, Fregban asked, "Are you ancestors of ours? Come back, you are?" Eldon did his best to understand their modified speech, which was a ghost of the original Lillistan speech. "No, we are not your ancestors. We are from a larger world outside." To the Lillistan, anything from the outside was a threat. One of the other elders, Hanbeg, answered, "Outside, outside, always heard from outside. Killing rays from sky they came. We hid inside. We must live inside now." The third elder, Leowan, now asked, "Come you from outside? Why? Come you to hurt us? Why?" Salena shook her head and said, "No, not to hurt. We want to help you." The elders found it hard to believe that anything good can come from outside. Eldon tried to convince them that they could live on the outside of their world soon. He explained that the threat to their existence from the outside was being eliminated. If they went back to the surface of their world, the energy field would return and restore the beauty it once had. This was just a crazy story to the Lillistan elders, so the conversation went back and forth. but the visitors felt as though they were getting nowhere. The present generation seemed to have no knowledge of their glorious past, when thousands of bloom ball worlds flourished on the pre-Metrozoid planet. All they knew was the current state of underground, grim existence, and the terror from the sky that brought death, destruction, and despair upon them. Some of the Lillistan were getting restless as the meeting dragged on. Then a faint buzzing got louder until zoom-wee went a bug over their heads. A big bug was flying around the room with a strange squeal sound coming from it. As it came around again near their heads, everyone could see what was making that awful noise. It was the dwarf child sitting on the bug near its head. This was the same child that the visitors first encountered. "Willigan, stop! Bad boy!" cried the father as he pointed to the flying boy on the bug. He caught the bug with a very fast net, grabbed the squealing child, and let the bug go. Then he immediately ran with the child in the net up to another chamber. An attempt was made to continue the meeting with the elders, but no one could concentrate on anything after that because of the screaming child. Some laughs could be heard from the audience as the sound of the child being disciplined boomed out into the chamber. The many bumps and crashes sounded as if the child was bouncing off the walls. It was hard for Salena to contain herself as she tried to disguise a laugh as a cough. The Lillistan seemed to be ready now for any kind of diversion, since they had grown tired of the meeting. So the visitors and the elders agreed to end it now and talk later. As the days went by, Eldon and Salena felt like prisoners in a long nightmare. They were treated civilly inasmuch as they had living quarters and food, but they were constantly watched because of the continued distrust of the Lillistan and also the strangeness of the visitors. Eldon talked with the Lillistan elders nearly every day. Salena no longer sat in on the discussions because it made her depressed. She used those times to take walks on the surface. At those times she would not be scrutinized by the Lillistan, or only from a distance. A few times she noticed a different type of creature than the many bugs there. It resembled a cat, and it climbed the peaks with tremendous speed and agility. This reminded her of her Gekgot friend Raskers back on her home planet. She could not get close enough for a better look. They were too fast-moving. She wondered how they could live on the barren surface since they had not been seen anywhere else. This day in particular, Salena was feeling emotionally down because it seemed that their mission, her first one, was a failure. Eldon was on his way to meet her, following the path that she normally walked. The atmosphere was very thin, but not a problem for them. This was because their bodies for this mission were very similar to the Lillistan soon after they populated the bloom balls. Their life was sustained mainly not by respiration, but by absorption of energy from the bloom balls in a symbiotic process. Eldon found Salena at a cliff overlooking a great ravine dividing the spiking mountains. She hardly looked up as he approached her. "Why are we here, Eldon?" "We must hold on and keep trying, Salena. I didn't know it would be this hard. Every day we see more of these Lillistan dying. There are not many left." "At least 1,000 are surviving still. And remember that the other SS team is on the outside as we speak, correcting that situation." "I know, but will that be enough? The people here have to want to be helped and to do their part." "I'm working on that, but a firelight above caught their attention. It intensified in brightness as it got nearer to the surface. Then a small glowing object shot out from the light and fell into the ravine. "They haven't stopped yet," Salena complained and threw a rock into the ravine. "That will end soon, believe me. We must have faith in our other team," Eldon assured as he looked up. "We need a way to convince them to come out of their caves. They need to have courage and to try to live again." Salena turned and looked at Eldon to say, "They only can understand the simplest concepts. What happened to their minds? They can learn, but they have so much fear, and it seems to me that this environment has worn them down to the point that they won't try. They really do not believe it is possible to change for the better, Eldon observed. They now assumed their meditative posture, which was hands touching and heads bowed touching at the top. This helped them to concentrate and to be comforted. After a few minutes, Salena looked up and said, "The Creator will help us to be successful. Can we ask Him? Can we communicate with Him?" Amazed and moved, Eldon's face showed how he was pleased with Salena as he had been many times before. He thanked the Creator for this exceptional moment, then said, "I believe it is possible. The ancients called it prayer, but it was abandoned as an accepted practice. Proof could not be found that the Creator listened and responded to their pleas. If the Creator really cares for His intelligent creation, then He would hear and answer them, wouldn't He?" Salena responded. "Yes, absolutely. The Creator knows all and sees all and knows our thoughts. He must be interested in our missions, which promote His desire of peace and order. All the evidence supports this, and I'm sure He pays attention to our declarations at the beginning of the SS domes." Salena agreed. "Yes, Eldon, but does He pay attention to each expression of each individual?" "He must, Salena. We must believe He does. But even now no one seems to know for sure how to approach the Creator. How do you speak to the Creator of the universe, the source of all life? It could not be as you would speak to another finite creature." Salena took Eldon's hand and looked into his eyes and said, "We are so small and weak. The all-powerful Creator knows that, and our words would not be adequate. But maybe He just wants us to try. You have proved to be a priceless treasure, Salena, surpassing my expectations. Perhaps we could try to talk to the Creator the way the ancients did. It could not hurt to try." Now they bowed in the meditative position again, but this time Eldon spoke. "Great Creator, source of life, we ask you now for a hearing. We want to accomplish this mission, to promote your purpose, to preserve life. Grant us success, please. Help us, please, to help the Lilistan. Send your power in the way we need it to endure and succeed. We are grateful for this privilege. We look to you for eternity." The couple sitting on the edge of a microscopic speck of desolation now knew they were not alone. They felt the inner assurance and consolation of being heard. They felt infused with purpose and renewed enthusiasm. This alone made the prayer more than worth the small effort and time. The couple made this a habit for each day, but preferred to call it source speak. They, of course, were now alert to look for evidence of an answer, not necessarily audible, but some response or help to their requests. They did not have blind faith, but it was based on solid evidence in Himself. The team on Metrozoid were assigned to the Sheiks. They had the Bloomball plant, the Lilistan world, in their residence. Timone 415217 played a physician that convinced Al-Namat Sheik to stop his smoke and incense habit. His habit was having an adverse effect on the Bloomball. Skolaznab 4318 played a building worker who installed an air filter in their home to protect from the polluted air outside, which was also bad for the Bloomball world. These two things protected the Lilistan in the short term. Then 519 Hufinda played a public announcer whose voice and image was transmitted into the Sheik home. Her announcement was something like this: "The Metrozoid Native Plant Refuge is sending out an urgent appeal for another virtually extinct plant. The Bloomball flower plant, once abundant on this planet, is needed at the refuge," said the director We are trying to preserve as many of these plants as we can. These vanishing native life forms can only be seen here at the refuge on this overly mecha-formed planet. A compensation will be paid for any plant donations. If you have any such plants, you are encouraged to bring them to the refuge where they will be preserved indefinitely. This would be a long-term protection for the Lillistan. Later, when Sheik would deliver his plant to the refuge. Of course, no one knew of the existence of the Lillistan except the SS agents. Back on Ofar Holokwe, Eldon and Salena were still trying. It had been 62 Lillistan days they were there. Eldon kept trying different methods to get his message across. He talked, drew pictures, did pantomimes, and told stories. Most of the Lillistan liked his stories, even laughing at them sometimes. But none that he knew of took them seriously enough to do anything about it. Eldon heard more from Fregban than any others. This aged Lillistan told Eldon of a so-called legend of Ofar Holokwe. It was an explanation of an unusual bug on their world. He said that when the original Lillistan came from the sun, they rode the rays into the bloom balls. They had to reach up to the sun in submission each day because it gave them life. Whenever some would not look to the sun, but trusted in their own life or energy, they began to shrink in size. These would try to hurt others and were called evil lights. They would be expelled and subsequently drift from one bloom ball to another. Eventually they would become so small they were called firebugs. There was no resemblance to the intelligent beings they were before. All they could do was hide in the hot zones and occasionally fly out to bite or enter into an unsuspecting victim. Whenever a Lillistan was bitten or invaded by the firebug, he developed a fever, started to shrink, and then would die. Eldon asked if any of those bugs actually existed. Fregban said in a low voice, "Believe it, I do, but say it, I do not. Not too many, I say it." Eldon had noticed that some had died while he and Salena had been there, but he could not confirm the symptoms of fever and shrinking. He knew that their society was in a negative growth stage. No babies had been born for some time. In fact, the 4-year-old child Willigan was perhaps the last one born. So it seemed that the Lillistan's days were numbered. Unless they could live on the surface again, they would die out as a race. Salena was out exploring and hoping she could find something that would help them in this mission. She saw the Ofar cats again, as she called them. This time she kept following one over hills, peaks, and rocks. Where did they come from? She wondered. She sat on a stump of a tree, which was hard like a rock. As she rested, she looked up and realized there had been no streaks or smoky stuff dropping from the sky today. This everyday phenomenon had ceased. To herself, she thanked the outside team for apparently getting their work done. Then she thanked the Creator and asked for an answer to their problem with the Lillistan. For the past few hours, her body temperature had been rising. Her clothes had become more loose, which she was beginning to notice. Salena did not know about the firebugs, so she did not worry about being on the surface. She now stood on her feet and caught sight of something over the next rise she had not seen before. It looked like a branch of a tree being waved around. She rushed to the edge of the hill and peeked around a pile of rocks. To her amazement was a little valley of green living things. Through the brush she could see it, like an oasis in the desert. She touched the tree in front of her. It was alive. Moving a small branch to get a better view, she could now see all colors of vegetation on the hillside leading into the valley. In the distance there was movement. It was the happy residents of this garden spot playing in a glade. Yes, it was the Ofar cats. Salena had found their home. Somehow it had been protected, cultivated, and hidden from the Lillistan. Salena climbed to a spot where she could see the length of the valley. There were 3 tall trees, one at each end, and one near the center. Another amazing sight caught her attention in this surreal place. A creature flew over her head from a peak to one of the trees. Was it winged? No. Was it one of the cats? She watched closely and saw a creature fly or jump from the center tree to a nearby valley peak. It was too far to tell for sure what it was. She kept watching from her hiding place between the rocks. Then one came out of the near tree and went overhead to the rock peak above. It was a cat with a glowing belly, holding a branch of a tree in its mouth. They did not have wings like birds. Their ability to fly must have had something to do with the glow from the underside. Salena saw several of them during her watch of their valley. The branches they were carrying looked like some kind of netting. They came from the 3 large trees there. She watched one cat carry a branch away to another valley and drop it. Salena broke off a little piece of a bush and put it in her pouch. She was anxious to get back and tell Eldon and the others of what she had discovered, but she wished she could also bring back proof of the animal life there. After climbing down from the ridge overlooking the Ophir Cat's Valley, she felt very tired. She found a rock overhang and sat under it. She wondered what was wrong because, as an SS agent on a mission, her energy level was not supposed to get so low. Back at the large chamber, Eldon was getting frustrated with the panel of elders he had been pleading with for an hour, and seemingly the 100th time. Their complacency had turned to boredom with Eldon. They were writing notes on a white lily ball and tossing it back and forth. If you continue to do nothing, your people will all die. Go outside and watch the sky. You will see no more poison streaks or fire.
Go out we will, and you will tell others. Others kill us. Kill us they will,
declared Elder Leowan. Handbag then claimed that Eldon was causing them to die at a faster rate. Eldon said he had nothing to do with that, but that he was there to try to save them. Then the elders voiced in a serious tone that they would adjourn to decide what to do. Eldon was not allowed to leave while they were in another room deliberating. Shortly they returned and announced to all in the chamber that Eldon must die because he was a danger to them. They called it rock kill, a punishment rarely used. They told him he would be put in a cell. The people would be gathered to the execution site, and upon Salena's return, they would both be rock killed. Near the door was the hyperactive little child Willigan, listening to every word. When he heard the announcement or pronouncement of sentence against the visitors, he ran outside. Eldon now realized that the conditions on their world had affected their minds much worse than he thought. Eldon began to feel alarmed at his dire situation. As SS agents, they did have certain abilities, but they were not indestructible. Salena found herself in the peaceful glade with colorful fruit trees around and a sparkling river at her feet. The Ophir cats were treating her as their new queen. She was lifted atop a large spotted royal cat. He took off to give her a high-view tour of her new paradise kingdom. Suddenly she was falling in slow motion into darkness. Then something scratched her face. A growl was all she heard. Then a rough, worm-like thing on her face. Salena opened her eyes to see a black mouth with sharp teeth and a tongue licking her nose. She backed away from it instantly. Then what she saw was surprising but a relief. It was a small Ophir cat cub. It had apparently wandered away from its den, but was keenly drawn to Salena. The site was near the rock overhang outside the Valley of the Cats. The cub had awakened Salena from her cat-queen dream. She picked up the cub, black in color, and held it close. It was content to stay in her arms. When it soon produced a satisfied purr, that told Salena that it had found its second mother. This is just what I needed, Salena thought. She not only loved little animals like this, She now had living proof of the Cat Valley to take back with her. On her walk back, she felt better because of the new energy and motivation the cub was giving her. After a short distance, Salena came upon the canyon, or large hole, where the cats had dropped those branches. It was full of small rocks, some still smoldering, some still in the tree nets. She now knew how they had survived on the surface. They must have used the tree nets to catch the poison rocks that fell from the sky. Being on guard constantly, they became quite adept at catching the contaminants and keeping them out of their valley. They dumped them in the big hole not far away. But now the threat from above was gone, and it was possible for the entire Bloom Ball world to become like that valley. On the trail back to the Lilistan main cave entrance, Salena was beginning to feel dizzy. Then she heard crying and small feet running. It was the child Willigan coming up the trail. When he saw her, he screamed in excited warning. Salena stooped down and took hold of the child. "What is wrong, Willigan? Why are you out here?" "Kill your friend. Kill you too. No go back." "It is okay. They will not kill us." Salena knew by the SEF from the dome that was still operative on her that Eldon was still alive. She felt sure now, with this evidence of the Cat Valley, that the Lilistan would listen. She reassured Willigan and allowed him to carry the cat cub, which he was happy to do. Fortunately, they found a big bug to ride back. Salena was feeling weaker by the minute. When they neared the entrance to the cave, a short walk away was the level area being prepared for the rock-kill stoning. Many rocks were being piled up in front of the gathering crowd. Then the three elders came out of the cave, followed by Eldon, bound and being led as a condemned prisoner. They did not want to get too far from the cave because of their fear of what may drop from the sky. The elder Handbeg saw Salena and said, "Other one is here. Bring her too. Other one too." Immediately, dwarf guards ran toward the big bug she was sitting on. Willigan jumped off the bug and started screaming. The cat cub jumped out of his hands and ran back to Salena on the bug. The guards stopped in their tracks when they saw that. Evidently, no one there had ever seen a creature like that. Salena mustered up all her energy to say loudly, "Look at this! This is a cat! It came from a valley I found on the surface." She held it up. "This is one of their young ones. They live in a valley with many plants and even trees." Some in the crowd started to laugh at yet another wild story of the visitors. "Listen to her. She speaks the truth," Eldon said in support. Salena put down the cub and said, "I have seen it. Look at this." She took the part of a bush from her pouch and motioned to Willigan. He came close and took the piece of vegetation. "Go show it to them, Willigan. Go ahead," she coached him. The child obediently held it in front of him as he walked toward one of the guards. As the guards were looking at it in amazement, Salena continued, "There were many plants, some good for food. This shows that you can live on the surface now." "Lies it is. No listen to her. Must rock kill them now. Now before too late it is," Handbeg defiantly blurted out. This was accompanied by murmurs from the crowd. Fregban spoke up and said, "No, not kill now. Must prove what she say. Prove first. We must go see." The cat cub and piece of a bush triggered a lost memory from when Fregban was a child. Now he knew it was not just his imagination. There were sounds of approval from the crowd after Fregban's words. Many of them did not really like the idea of the stoning of the visitors. They had grown fond of them like Willigan did. So they decided to follow Salena and the child back to the valley of the Ophar cats. With this turn of events, Salena felt re-energized and full of hope. Most of the people rode big bugs for the close to 4-kilometer distance. Some chose to stay near the cave, but most of the crowd followed to the valley. When they saw it, it was like a dream come true for them. Eldon and Salena then explained how the cats were able to do it when the Lillistan did not. By the time the people made their way back toward the cave, the sky was already starting to clear, and little shoots of plant life were coming up by the trail. This was the surface responding to the energy the people were giving off. Instead of stoning the visitors, they now honored them in a big celebration. Progressively, over the next 10 days of their time, gardens and farms were started. The health of the Lillistan improved, and one couple announced that they were pregnant. Their future looked bright again. Eldon and Salena were elated at the outcome. They could leave now, confident that the Lillistan would go on and prosper. They learned an important lesson on this mission. They could always rely on the Creator by asking for help and getting a personal answer at the right time. He can shed light into any cave.